All right, let's turn back to our beloved friends in Davos. Donald Trump in the spotlight today, delivering his speech in front of the global elite, talking about his big wins on the economic and trade front, but also, once again, taking a shot at the Fed.
The Fed has raised rates too fast and lowered them too slowly. And even now, as the United States is by far the strongest economic power in the world, it's not even close. It was going to be close, but a lot of good things happened to us and some not so good things happened to certain other places. They're forced to compete, and we compete with nations that are getting negative rates, something very new, meaning they get paid to borrow money, something that I could get used to very quickly. Love that.
It's great stuff.
So right after that, Larry Kudlow went out and said negative rates are not a good idea. They're really bad for banks. They're really bad for savers. They're not great for investors.
Central banks that have taken on negative rates have started to say, actually, QE sort of asset purchases are a more forceful part of the policy.
Right. And for the Federal Reserve's part, that's exactly what they've been saying. They said QE, forward guidance, is the recipe for the next downturn.
Just look at
not negative interest rates right now.
Look at the not QE.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of hilarious to see Trump go up and say that. And then it was literally, I think, 30 minutes or an hour after that, Kudlow started to walk those comments back. But look, I feel like we have to do a Yahoo U on this, on negative interest rates.
There it is.
The problem here, you heard it here first. You heard it here. But here's the thing. You can have negative interest rates on issuance that actually had positive yields at first, right?
Okay,
Market rates can take negative interest rates.
There's a conversation between negative effective yields and negative
right. But the point is, President Trump seems to think that negative interest rates means the government can issue bonds at negative yields and then make money off of
So do most macro strategists.
Well, right, and that's a problem that's a myth that needs to be dispelled right off the bat. And as Kudlow points out, rightly, not everybody's a winner in a negative interest rate environment. In fact, there are lots of losers. So just need to get that out there.
I sort of wonder, I think for a time, Trump's complaints about the Fed, were interesting. And he's going to obviously continue to do it. And you sort of wonder at which point does he kind of get off that.
Here's an interesting statistic. So since President Trump has entered office, I'm going to have a story about this soon, another assignment. He's tweeted 100 times about the Federal Reserve, monetary policy, Powell in some capacity. 48 of those tweets came before or in the period leading up to the September 18, 2019 FOMC meeting where the Fed cut by 25 basis points, right? That was their second cut of the 3 that they delivered last year. He's been pretty quiet since then.
Yeah.
Because he acknowledged that, yes, the Fed did cut. He says he wants it at 0, but of course the president has to come out and say it's never good enough for him.
Well, does he have to say that? Couldn't the president, as has usually been the case, just say nothing about the Fed?
Well, I think once the Fed started cutting is when he started saying we actually want interest rates to be 0 or negative. So he did ramp up the rhetoric once the Fed started doing what he already wanted.
Right.
I think after that fact, he kind of realized that the Fed probably won't do that. And then, because when the Fed was at that teetering point, it was like maybe, again, this is maybe the perception from the White House, maybe the policy will be malleable. Those things are obviously, Powell has said, we're not influenced by what the president is saying. But that's maybe what Trump was hoping for.
Well, I think this is why we end up on the opposite side of the take that Powell actually did respond to Trump. Because when you lay it out like that, it seems like you did.
Well, I've asked this of Neil Kaspari.
I know what they say, right? We all know what they say.
We all know what they say, and I've asked this question, though, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what the Federal Reserve does. I am sure inside the Federal Reserve that they are truly doing this independently. They probably don't talk that much about what Trump is saying or doing. But when people look back on this chapter in history, all they're going to see is that President Trump was firing off all these tweets about the Fed easing, and then guess what? The Fed did. Right. A lot of stories. There are multiple stories.
Be like, wow, that Brian Cheung, he really knows the Fed influences policy, or the president influences policy.
You got a few stories up there, too.
That's right. But then you took over my job.